How you going, guys? Right, this is a video for the boys at Outlaw Ridge over in, I think, northern Minnesota they are. Over there in the snow at the moment, and working on the inside of their shed, trying to get it all sorted out so they get a bit better insulation. So this is my shed. It's about 7 metres long or thereabouts, might be a bit longer than that, might be a wee bit longer than 7 metres. And it's actually, it might be longer than 7 metres, it might be closer to 8 metres. Oh, I can't remember. And about 4 metres wide. I'm trying to convert that into feet. It's a bit over 3 feet per metre. So if you want to work that out roughly. So yeah, so it fits the old 66 Dodge in there pretty well. Like, I've got a little bit of room at the back and a little bit of room at the front, and all the guards and everything and all back on it. So basically, that's my bead roller for a start, and my father-in-law's trailer with a motor for my work vehicle, because my work vehicle motor's got real sick in the last while, so that's a replacement I just picked up at the weekend. So I've got to put that in. Probably next week I'll try and get that in. I should be at work today, but there's reasons for that, but we won't go into that in the meantime. But so that's front guards, bonnet. That somebody cut a nice big dirty hole in, which I'm probably going to put a bonnet scoop over. Headlights rounds. There's a radiator support panel in behind here. The diff, which is an 8 3/4, and as you can see, the radiator support panel down there. Now the front guard, doors, glass up on top, and a water slide for the young fella to slide around on when it's a nice hot day. There's the grill and the rear parcel shelf, parcel tray, whatever you want to call it, for behind the seats and between the seats and the back window. That's the original trim for that. I was part of the radiator support panel with where the bonnet catches, or hood catch I suppose. So yeah, I'm still deciding what I'm going to do with this floor. So I haven't decided whether I'm going to take this tunnel out and try and put the original one in. If I don't put the original one in, I want to tidy it all up, improve the welds, especially mainly on underneath where they've joined it up, and they've sort of overlapped pieces and it hasn't been welded on the edge and all that sort of stuff. It just looks ugly. So if I don't replace this, and I'll take the shifter hole out, I'll cover that up and get rid of that out of the road. And we'll cut this piece of pan out, because it's just a flat piece of steel in there, and I'll make a reverse of the passenger side. So I was actually just having a wee play with my big roller there, with the step roller, and just trying to, because there's some big wide ribs in there as tooling. So I was just trying to see if I could copy them with my step roller, with a piece of steel, just having a play there the other day. So I can do that. So I should be able to replicate that panel reasonably easy. I'll try and do the holes. That one there is just flat, but that other one's stepped in, so I haven't tried to do any tight circles, but I'll have a go. Yeah. So what else we got here? Just basic tools, some punches, just all the bits and pieces of the car, wiper motor, brake pedal assembly, handbrake assembly, or e-brake, whatever you want to call it. There's wiper pivots and interior trims and brake master cylinder and speedo cables and all sorts of stuff up there. There's the intake manifolds up there too. So I've got a few basic tools here. I haven't got much really, because I have got a lot of stuff in New Zealand and I don't want to heavily double up on stuff, because eventually I'd like to stick this on a boat and take it back to New Zealand in a few years' time if we don't stay here. So that's sort of, I want to get this going, and then I've got to have it on the road here in Australia before I can take it home, under my ownership before I can take it home. I think it's different if you're in New Zealand and want to import it. There's some loopholes in amongst there, but if you're in New Zealand, in Australia, and you want to own it and want to ship it to another country, or ship it to New Zealand, being a New Zealand resident, I've got to own it for a year and be registered. So yeah, I've just got some few spanners and screwdrivers. Some of it's second hand, some of it's new. Punch set I bought the other day for knocking some roll pins out. Yeah, half-inch drive socket set. Just just all sorts of stuff. There's a few Allen keys and bits and pieces floating around in there. Now this is the front brakes off it, and it's got a conversion kit on it. Done some research and I've found out that's from a shop over here. There's a kit that they make for these Australian Dodges. It fits quite a few models. I'm not sure how far before 65 they go. I'm not 100% sure on that, but this is from, what was it, Castle Rod Shop. What used to be Castle Main Rod Shop, I think it used to be, but I think they changed the name when the owner when it changed hands. So yeah, this is a 71 Ford Falcon disc or rotor, and it's a caliper off a GM product over here, Holden, off an HQ Holden, which is again about a 71, depending on what year it was built or whatever. But yeah, so that's what the brakes are, and the original stub axle. So yeah, I've got a cheap like cordless tool kit, grinder, what else we got up in here, torch, a drill. I should have an impact driver as well here floating around somewhere. That might be in the boot of their family car, and a wee skill saw, I suppose you kind of call it. What's in here? Yeah, whatever that is. Oh, some brackets for the steering column. I put most stuff in plastic bags, like all the small stuff, and sort of label it. Down these drawer or cupboards, I know it's paint in that one. So here's some motor parts down in here, like some pulleys and like bolts and bits and pieces. Most of it's all labelled. Down in there, small engine parts like oil pumps and timing gears and all sorts of stuff. There's a bag of head stuff like some springs and keepers and rockers and all sorts of stuff in there. So I've sort of been going through a little bit of stuff because I went to a swap meet the other day and sort of tried to get rid of some stuff, but I only sold one exhaust manifold for an LA V8. So it's the pistons out of this motor. It's my block. Some torsion bars out of both those front ends I stripped down. I've marked them on got a little notebook. Might be inside. I've marked the numbers off them to left and right. My bender I made up. There's one head down there. I think there's down in that bottom shelf might be the torque converter. Some U-bolts for the diff and other brackets off the diff and bolts and whatever else. Rear shocks, the other head underneath there with the rocker cover and bits and pieces. Some stuff out of the doors, like door handles, and I think some regulators and just all the little odds and bits and pieces and rods and stuff out of some of the doors. Starter, alternator, battery tray, the sumps in behind there, some other little what do we got? She got it written on there, because I can't have it. So just inside stuff, bolts, oh it might be, looks like maybe seatbelt bolts and bits and pieces and some interior trims and inside of the glove box. There's a heater unit up there. You know, bonnet hinge springs that go from side to side in the car, or hood springs. It's front end suspension components. I've got 2 sets of bottom arms. You know, got 1 set of top arms and steering stuff, and the filler neck out of the tank. A whole heap of bolts and bits and pieces from the front ends when I strip those 2 front ends. I think some wiring and bits and pieces in there out of the car. It's my welding helmet. It's part of the Boss Weld. I'm not sure if they're Australian or not, but that's a Boss Weld welder. It's 180 amp meg, like it's gas and gasless. Obviously, I can put an aluminium spool gun on it too, or I could put aluminium wire through it. But you can get a handpiece that takes like a little aluminium spool gun. It's 240 volt. All the wall sockets over here are 240 volt. So all that sort of stuff's 240. The little 2-cylinder compressor. I've got an extra tank in behind there which I was going to hook up. I was going to take the bung out of there and get a big hose fitting. I was going to put an inch hose, air hose between the two, because that other one's got I think it's an inch. It might be not an inch, but it might be 3/4 of an inch. Air hose fitting in the end of that. I was going to put one in the end of that and hook it so I had extra air, but this is starting to breathe a little bit heavy. Like it's only 6 months old, so it's obviously not high quality. You know, it's a cheap frickin' Chinese crap probably. But it was from the local hardware shop, hardware tools, home supply stuff. It was about $400 Australian, so like it wasn't cheap, but it wasn't expensive. You know what I mean? Like you could have spent thousands for a decent sized one, but I just didn't want a huge one. I just wanted something that was going to do the job. So yeah, I was just going to hook that extra tank up, but it's breathing a bit heavy and it's blowing oil up through the line, so I'm going to probably take that back shortly and maybe get a different compressor. A vice I just picked up recently, which I've still got to mount. Just a cheap bench grinder. I would like to get a wire wheel for it eventually. Yeah, not a lot else, just odds and sods, a few blocks of bolts and bits and pieces, bit of rolled up newspaper with some sandpaper around it, which I find quite handy for getting on some of these rolled edges when I do sanding eventually. Look, there's the door swinging open. My little media blaster that you hook up to compressor. It's possibly why the compressor's breathing a bit heavy when I was sandblasting underneath the car, just with it running all the time. But it works quite well. Like it's not, because I probably haven't got a massive amount of airflow all the time. Like it's probably running at about 80 psi, I suppose, when you're flat out all the time. It removes like light rust and bits and pieces. It cleans up pretty well. Like, but it's not really ripping that hard to be steel. But it will do. But if you really hold it one spot it won't blow holes through too much. So yeah, this is the back guard. I still got to fully weld that. Still got to do something with this back wheel arch where it's pulled in. That's the front door, which I've still got to strip out. So yeah, always one of the 2 back quarter panel pieces, which I've kept for just basic patterns in the meantime, because I might make some more and sell them. And I think I've got the inner pattern somewhere for the inner pieces. So that's all the inner pieces in there. You can't really, you can't see that, I suppose. Some of the front sway bar and radius rods, steering column. This is another steering column, but out of a 65. It's got the push button auto cable linkage set up on it, and it's not really good to me because I haven't got any of the other stuff to go with it. actually hook up to that trans. So that's a 727 push button, which isn't the right one for this car either, because the next year, which is this one, which is a 66, not a 65, they went away from push button. So I'm going to use that for mock-up, and if I can't sell it, I'll just keep it for spare parts internally. I know they're not exactly the same, but there is parts that are the same. Steering box and pump. So yeah, some odds and sods. It's another heater out of another Chrysler product, Australian version, about 64 or 5, maybe 66 Valiant, which is very similar to the Plymouth Valiants, but again right hand drive, not left hand drive, and a few cosmetic differences, which was, I think they call them an AP series over here, AP 5 or 6 it might be out of, and the same with these wheel trims and the bonnet catch maybe, and all the chrome pieces off the backs of the station wagons that set up on the edges, back pillars near the tailgate. So yeah, there's a bit of stuff here. Awesome. Some trim from around the roof and the windows. So yeah, some new bonnet hinges, because the front ones, the ones on this are knackered. And out the backs, the two chassis and some bit of other garbage, wheels, tyres. So I've still got to tidy up and sort out and get rid of that other. Oh, there we go. There's the wind. So yeah, it shows you those bits out there. I'm going to have a bit of a clean up out there. That's about it. What else can I show you? Not much else really. Fuel tank, boot lid. I've got some bit of what do you want to call it? Bit of box friggin' section steel in there. Now this is a real handy thing. It's a vacuum. You can hook it up to your air compressor. It's got a bag you can take off and on, and you can also suck water through it. It's quite handy for just when you're in there friggin' making a mess and you want to suck it up without blowing it everywhere. It's quite handy for doing that, cleaning out and sucking down in these holes and bits and pieces. So yeah, this is the floor pan. Like I want to tidy this up. So I've got all the rubber off there now. You can see all the black shit all over the floor. That's all bits of rubber. They put some sort of, must have painted some sort of rubber coating on there, and then it goes like real rubbery. So yeah, I've got all that off, so now I can sort of see what I'm doing and work that out. So yeah, that'll do for now, and I'll catch you later on. Cheers.